Well, thanks for joining us today. My name is Eric Danielson, and I'm with the Iowa College Access Network, and I'm here to talk to you about paying for college. The financial aid process is starting earlier this year than ever before, so I want to give you some tips and try to help you through the process, as well as letting you know about some places where you can go for help for free. Working for the Iowa College Access Network, we're a nonprofit organization that travels all over Iowa and has different locations throughout Iowa in helping families go through this financial aid process, as well as career and college planning too, and many other resources available. We're in 99% of the high schools in Iowa doing presentations like this about the financial aid process. And again, this year, it's earlier than ever with beginning the process. So I've got a few things I want to go over with you today on what to do and the process itself. And we'll go ahead. First thing, though, that I did want to mention to you about is we're going to have on these slides that I'm going to show you different page numbers. And the slide that I'm showing here right now are available on our website at icansucceed.org. There's a ready to file the FAFSA sheet with here's what you'll need, everything you would need to fill out the FAFSA on an appointment with us, or if you're doing it yourself. On the back of that is actually some helpful tips about filling out the FAFSA that I'm going to talk about during this presentation. And then our Paying for College Guide. There are going to be some page numbers on our slides we go through today with this Paying for College Guide. This is a guide that you could get from us in any of our locations, or you can also download it at our website again at icansucceed.org. Our locations, again, now are all over Iowa. Where I'm located at, and I know the one that's going to be closest to you, is at the DMAC Ankeny campus in building number 5. If you would like any help in filling out the FAFSA form after tonight, give us a call at the toll-free number. There, we do say appointments are required just because we're still doing a lot of traveling during the year with this early FAFSA, and we want to make sure that we have someone available for you when you come in. But besides giving us a call, this is the front page of our website here. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a Schedule Now button. We're allowing people to schedule online now, too, and checking our availability in case during a heavy season you can't get in with a phone call, or it's after our office hours, you're still able to make an appointment there. Now, financial aid is what we're mostly known for in helping people fill out the FAFSA form and explaining the results later. But if you're not quite ready to fill out the FAFSA yet, and you've got a student that's a freshman, sophomore, junior, and want to talk some one-on-one about the whole college planning process, please give us a call, schedule online, and we'd be more than happy to work one-on-one with you for those appointments too. Now, my main focus today with you is going to be the financial aid process itself, making sure you get it started in the right and timely manner that you need to for your family. There will be other things that I discuss as well, the calculating and understanding financial aid, understanding college costs, a little bit about financial aid resources. But honestly, not every student sees every type of financial aid available, so it's an area I cut down on. We really feel the main focus is going to be to talk about the process and making sure you do it in the timely manner that you need to. So the application process, just diving right in. What is going to start this application process, or the actual application that every family is going to need to fill out, no matter which college a student's going to, in-state, out-of-state, public, private, is the FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid. This is a federal form where you're applying for federal aid, but it isn't just federal aid that can be determined by this. State aid and institutional aid can also require a FAFSA form and be determined by the results from it. This year, for those of you that are needing to fill it out as high school seniors, it is going to get into your 2015 tax information. You're going to be filling out a 17-18 FAFSA form, but utilizing what we call prior tax information. So 2015, for the majority of families now, you've already got that done, so you'll be able to use taxes that have already been completed. And this is a huge change this year. There's also another one that I'm going to talk about here in just a second. One thing, though, that we like to address at the very beginning of our presentation is, should you even bother with the FAFSA? Do we have to fill it out? Our answer is always yes. Now, technically, if you're going to just write the check out and pay for the school out of pocket, you would need to have a FAFSA form. But if you want to have chances for financial aid, including the institutional aid, which may require it, that could even be, scholarship money based on merit, academics, athletics, artistic ability, those merit-based awards. Some colleges, even though it doesn't matter what the FAFSA results will say to be able to give it, the college still might require it. So that's just one reason. The other reason in the middle there, it says it's required for federal loans. Even if you don't think you're going to need a federal loan, and we hope you wouldn't as a family, but if you would, possibly even during the school year, you're going to need to have a FAFSA form on file. $5,500 is what college freshmen would be able to qualify for in just by having the FAFSA form on file, no matter what your family's financial situation is. Even if you have no financial need, that $5,500 would be unsubsidized, which means the interest starts accruing right away, but it's still going to be available to college freshmen just by having the FAFSA form on file. So even if you don't think you're going to need it, it's just a good what-if situation in case something unexpectedly comes up. You've at least already got the FAFSA form taken care of if you would need a loan even during the school year while that's happening. Now, when you come time to fill out the FAFSA form, which is after October 1st of this year. So we're actually taping this here in the beginning of October right now. People can start filling out the FAFSA form at this time. For any of you that have done it in the past, you know that you needed to wait until after January 1 for the next school year, which this year, the next school year is the 17-18 school year. Well, that's no longer the case. They've moved it up 3 months, and so you can begin filing the 17-18 FAFSA now after October 1. And different colleges are going to have different deadlines for when you're going to need to do that. When the time comes to fill it out, doing it online at FAFSA.gov is where we want you to go. But I want to stress when you actually are going to need to do it as a family. It's available now after October 1, and one of the things that we want to stress to you, because we've already heard this from some families, is if you haven't done it yet, that is okay. You did not have to stay up until midnight on October 1 and start filling out the FAFSA form. Different colleges are going to have different financial aid or FAFSA priority dates. When you as a family need to fill out the FAFSA form is the earliest priority date of whatever colleges that a student is looking at. The two earliest dates here in Iowa are the University of Iowa and Iowa State University. They have December 1 priority dates. There's a lot of other colleges that are January 15, February 1, March 1, but December 1st is really the earliest FAFSA priority date for colleges here in Iowa. If you would like a list of when your college FAFSA priority date is, if you're looking at colleges in Iowa, you can go to our website at icansucceed.org. Now, if you're looking out of state, we do not have a list of the out-of-state FAFSA priority dates, so you need to make sure to contact those colleges and find out when their FAFSA priority dates are. But again, you as a family will need to fill it out. If you're looking at more than one college, you need to fill it out by the earliest FAFSA priority date of any colleges a student is looking at. The reason is it's first come, first serve for especially the institutional aid. And the students that are going to be first in line for that are the ones that get their FAFSA in by the school's FAFSA priority date. It does not mean, and I want to stress this point too, it does not mean that you won't get any financial aid at all if you go beyond a deadline or a FAFSA priority date, but you might miss out on some. And we've always had a saying, all these years that we've been around at ICAN since 1998, we've always said the best way to ensure a student gets the most financial aid coming to them, beat the FAFSA priority date or dates of any colleges that a student is looking at. And again, check in with those colleges out of state if you're not sure. But on our website, we have the list for the Iowa colleges. Now, when you begin filling out the FAFSA form, this is going to be the front page of it at FAFSA.gov, and you would click on Start a New FAFSA. It's going to get into at first just some general information for the student, and that Social Security number, date of birth, just general information like that we want you to make sure you double check, even triple check before you submit it in, because they do a match with the Social Security Administration on what you put on the form, not only student but later on parent information too. And if it doesn't agree, then corrections can be made and delay the process. So just try to double check all that information before you submit it in. After you enter in the general information, it's going to ask you what colleges you want the information sent to, and up to 10 colleges can be listed. Now, you do not have to have applied yet to those schools. That would be something I would encourage students to do right away if they haven't and still need to get in some actual college applications. Do that right now. But you do not have to have done that before putting the information or the colleges listed down on the FAFSA form. Now, after you list the colleges, now we're going to get into questions that are directed to the student. And those questions that are directed to the student are determining whether or not they're dependent or independent from the family. The questions are, were you born before January 1, 1994? As of today, are you married? At the beginning of the 17-18 school year, will you be working on a graduate program? Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? Or are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? Do you have any children or dependents who receive more than half their support from you between July 1 of 17 and June 30th, 2018? At any time since you turned 13, were both parents deceased? Were you in foster care, or were you dependent or ward of the court? As determined by a court in your state of legal residence, are you or were you an emancipated minor in a legal guardianship? Or any time on or after July 1, 2016, were you homeless or at risk of being homeless, designated by some agency like what we see a lot, the school liaison, if it happens. That could be, not always, but it could be the school counselors at the high schools. Now, majority of high school seniors are going to answer no to all these questions. When they do, that means they're still dependent, and then we're going to need parent information on the form. If any student would, though, be able to answer yes to just one of these questions, just one of them, they would be independent and would not need parent information on the form. The three at the very end here on this slide, the last three, are the ones we would see the most if any high school senior could answer yes to. And we tell them, if you answer yes to one of them, you're independent. You would not need parent information. But have the documentation ready, because the colleges that you have the information sent to will require the documentation to be sent to them. Don't send it right away. Wait till they ask for it, but that is something that they will ask for. Now, if we answer no, though, to all the questions, if the students do, they're still dependent, so we're going to get into parent information on the form. And this leads to another big question at our financial aid nights, which parents have to fill out the form? When the parents are married or unmarried and living together, it's both parents' information. That, I should say, the biological parents, if they're unmarried and living together, or parents that are married, they would need to, both parents would be included. But if a parent is widowed or single, you only answer questions about that parent. If that widowed parent is remarried as of today, then you would answer questions about the parent and the step-parent. The big question, though, is what arises is what happens in divorce situations in the family. Well, if there's a divorce situation in the family, the parent that is responsible for filling it out is the one that the student lived with the most in the past 12 months from whenever you're filling out this FAFSA form. So it could either be here in October, November, December, January, whenever it is, you look at the last 12 months. Not 2015, even though that's what the tax information is being asked about. You look at the last 12 months from whenever you're filling out the form. So let's say if that's the mother and the mother's not remarried, then it would just be the mother's information that would go on the form. If the mother is remarried, then it would be mother and step-parents information that is included. So again, as we mentioned with the widow one, you do have to count a step-parents information on the form if the parent that is responsible for filling it out is remarried. If we get the question, what if they live with us equally in the last year? Is it truly equal is my first question. Even if it's one day over another, then it would be that parent need to fill it out. But if it is equal, they say it's equal, then we'll tell them it's whoever gave more support in that last 12 months. If we hear that that's equal as well, our next step is really to have them talk to the colleges and ask them about which parent they think it is. Colleges are the ones that are empowered to make any professional judgments. This could be just one example. Another example would be if your income is going to be either better, but usually if it's going to be worse, parent loses a job, and you're using 2015 taxes, but it'll be different in 16 or 17. You just know that already. You initially fill out the form of 15 information, but you can go to the colleges to appeal what we call a special circumstance to see if they can do anything. Now, I cannot promise you that colleges will always be able to help out, but they can tell you yes or no, and they're the only ones that can do it. And if you're looking at more than one school right now, you would need to go to each individual college and ask them about that. So it's not limited to this, it's just one example, but I did want to mention any kind of special circumstance that you feel, it's directly to the colleges that you go, not FAFSA, and unfortunately in this case, not ICAN. We can try to answer questions, but if it becomes a special circumstance, we're going to have to guide you to the colleges that you're looking at. Now, after we determine the parents that are going to fill it out, it's not on my slide here, but we get into the 2015 tax information on the form after their general information. You know, adjusted gross income, what father and mother has earned from working, if it's both parents' information were included, income tax paid, number of exemptions. Ideally, the best way to fill this form out now, and since everything is moved up and we're using now prior year's taxes that have already been done for most families quite a while, there is a way of bringing in your information directly from the IRS doing out the FAFSA form. And where the majority, not all, but the majority of the things would be filled out for you on there. And if you're able to do that, really that's the ultimate way in filling out the FAFSA form, because the information's coming directly from the IRS. You have a good chance of not being selected for verification later and providing extra documentation because it's been directly in. Not everybody could utilize that tool under the old system, but now under this new system, the majority of families should be able to use that. And the ones that we've already filled out, really, I have not been denied on one yet. You can't do it if you do an amended tax return. You also can't do married couples that file separately. I mean, all of that then would have to be manually entered in. But in most other cases, now it should be able to work for families. But after we do the tax information for the parents, then the next thing we get into are asset questions for the parents. And these, the asset questions, there are going to be 3 of them. As of today, what do you have for cash savings and checking? As of today, what do you have for current investments? And as of today, what do you have for business and or investment farm value? Now let me do the farm question and business question first, and that's what I have up on my slide here, is if you had to include business or farm, they are going to look at market value of land, building, machineries, equipment, inventory, but it is net worth, value minus debt. The debt, though, only means those debts for what the business or investment farm was used as collateral. Now, as I say this, business value, for business value, do not include a business where you or your family owns and controls it and has less than 100 full-time employees. And a family-owned business means just about any way you can be directly related to a family, directly or through marriage, it is what they have for family-owned and controlled. The majority of small business owners that we helped out usually fall under this category. So even though that they have business income or minus, it's on the taxes which are counted, their business as an asset, a lot of times, because of this rule, is not. You know, if you only own 10% of the business and it's not with a family, then yes, they are going to look for all that net worth, the value minus the debt on what you have. But many own and control it, or the family does, less than 100 full-time employees, it's not included. Now for investment farm, you do not include an investment farm that you live on and operate. So if you live on and operate a family farm, you do not have to include that as an asset on the FAFSA form. Now, if you have farmland that you do not operate yourself, that's going to be considered an investment. Net worth of it, fair market value, net worth value minus debt. Here's kind of, at least for FAFSA purposes, the gray area. What about the family farmer that does not live on the farm that they own and operate, or they don't live on all the farm that they own and operate? Anybody in that situation, we encourage you to contact the colleges to see how they would look at that. And the reason is some colleges will tell you, you've got to count it. You don't live on it, the form says live on and operate, so net worth, value minus the debt. There can be other colleges, though, that make a professional judgment and say that's not what we feel the break was meant for, we don't want you to count it, or they initially have you put it down, and then they take it off later, doing that professional judgment and documenting it. The colleges that don't do that are making their own professional judgments, and so that's why you have to go and ask for them. So this is one question. If anybody ever has a farm question where it's not cut and dry, we encourage those families, contact the colleges directly. And again, if you're looking at more than one, you need to contact each one. If one college tells you to count it and one doesn't, you go ahead and list it. And the one that said don't count it, they can, again, pull it off later, their own results later in a professional judgment. Now the second question got into investments. These are investments that you would have to include. Not the real estate, but not the home that you live in. Trust funds, UGMA accounts, money market mutual funds, CDs, stocks, bonds, and the other things, 529 plans. Now this is a part where I should mention that as parents, you're asked your tax questions and then these asset questions. Right after we answer the questions for the parents about the taxes and investments, students are going to be asked the same thing. They are splitting up parent and student information because they want to determine what they feel each of you could contribute, what they feel the parents could contribute towards the student's education, and what the student can, and then they want to add it together for what they call an EFC number, an expected family contribution. And when I say we, this is a Department of Ed government form, so I should mention that. The investments that are included on here, some of them, I know a lot of times that they're going to be more for the parents than it is the students, or apply more to them, but there are some on here that I want to point out. UGMA and UTMA accounts, those are on the student side. If they're in the student name, somebody set that up, they are counted as a student investment. Where 529 plans, they're actually counted on the account owner side. And if a parent is saving for their son or daughter, they're the account owner. The student's the beneficiary. So it's an investment that is counted, but it's counted on the parent side instead. And parents are not hit as hard as what students are as far as investments. Parents will have an allowance first before anything is looked at, where students, 20% right away of what they have for assets goes on towards the family contribution number. So it is nice when you can count it on the parents instead of the students, but it sort of depends on what the investment is. I do want to point out with 529 plans that if a grandparent or somebody else has been saving for a student, they're the account owner, and you do not have to list a grandparent's or an aunt or uncle's, assets on this form. Now later on, when there's a distribution, there is a place on the form where you might have to count it that says untaxed income not reported elsewhere on this form in a certain year when there's a distribution for the student. But as far as it as an asset, if the grandparent or aunt or uncle are saving it for them, you would not have to count those 529 plans because they're the account owner. They're the ones that are getting the state tax breaks from them. Now, investments you do not have to count. Here's a list that's located up there, but the two big ones I want to mention, the home that you live in and retirement accounts. You do not have to count those as investment assets. And because of that, the majority of Iowa families that we deal with do not go over the allowance that they are given based on the age of the older parent in the family for what allowance that they're given based on that for assets. So a lot of times the assets aren't counted against the parents towards their contribution. Not always. I mean, some do and go over the allowance. But when you don't have to count the home that you live in or retirement, many Iowa families, if not the majority, it might be their only assets that they actually have. And Roth IRAs are not counted at all as an asset on the form either, IRAs. Students, and that would be the same for students either. IRAs are considered, the Roth IRAs, and non-education IRAs, I should mention, are not counted at all, whether for the parent or the student. So if a student has started an IRA already, they would not need to list that either as an asset. Now, I'd mentioned you don't count retirement as an investment, but there are some untaxed income questions, and one of them is payments to a tax-deferred pension and retirement savings plans that you'll find on your W-2 form in box 12 with these codes that are listed on this form. If you contribute to a 401k, your own money untaxed that was put into a retirement account, you do have to list that for untaxed income for 2015. There is one plan, it's not limited to this, but one plan you do not count even your contribution here in Iowa that I want to mention, and that's IPERS. Since IPERS is mandatory, you do not have to count that. And I know there's been others people have mentioned. If it's a mandatory, it's not your choice to contribute untaxed, then I would say you would not have to count it because that's what IPERS falls under. Another that's not listed on here for untaxed income questions is child support received for all children in 2015. So any child support received, you would need to list for in 2015, you would need to list that. That'll be one of the untaxed income questions as well. Now, after you complete all of this for the parents and then taxes and asset questions for the students too, if you haven't already done this, which many of you might have, you are going to need to eventually sign the form using what's called now a federal student aid ID, which consists of a username and a password. This replaces the old 4-digit PIN number. The federal student aid ID is something that we want every family to go and get right now. And when I say family, one parent and the student. There's going to need to be, the only time just a student would need to, if they're independent, then it would only be them that would need to. But the student and one parent are going to need to request an FSA ID. And there's the website highlighted right there on this screen. These take about 7 or 10 minutes to do because it gets into your general information, has you create your own username and password, and then challenge questions. So it takes a little more time than what it used to for the 4-digit PIN numbers. But you want to make sure that once you create them, which again, for high school senior families, create them now. If you're a parent that already has one, because you've already got a student in college, you don't need to create another one then. Yours serves for your multiple students. It's just each student needs to have their own PIN number on the form, being able to use for the form. Now, one of the things it will ask for is an email address. Each ID that you create has to have its own unique email address. So as a parent, you can't use your same email address for you and your student. They need to have their own, or you use a separate parent email for them. One of the biggest pains in helping families the last year and a half since he started is when we forget the passwords or the usernames for these, because they're not that easy to always get. So please keep them in a safe place. Make sure that you put them, where you're always going to be able to find them, because you're going to reuse them each year. Each year that a student attends college, you've got to do a new form with new tax information, and that is going to be something it's just so much easier if you have those ahead of time that second, third, or fourth year that you're filling out the FAFSA form. Now, there is some places for help that you can go even besides our office that's taking place over the next few months here. FAFSA Ready Iowa, formerly called College Goal Sunday, now we're calling it FAFSA Ready Iowa, events are starting from October 1 and going through March 1 of next year. Here's the different locations that are happening. To find the location nearest you and when they're going to be taking place in those cities, go to our website at icansucceed.org/FAFSA Ready Iowa. These events, the majority of these events, you do not need to make appointments for. You can just show up on those days. So it could be very handy to have those in mind, and even some of them are on the weekends, which might be a little more help to you in getting the FAFSA form completed. Now, once you submit in the FAFSA form, after you've signed it, submit it in, within about a week or two, you're going to get results back called a student aid report. And at the same time, the colleges that you've listed down are going to get the results as well. When the colleges get the results, they might need extra information from you. Now, we really think this change is going to allow more people to be able to use the IRS data retrieval process right away, so that they're not going to have to go through verification, but there will still be some that will. If a college needs extra documentation from you, they will let you know. A lot of times during the first year, for a high school senior, they'll mail the information, what they need, a letter, and you get it back into them. Once a student's in college, then it goes through their online accounts, and because of FERPA laws and that, they a lot of times have to email the student, and they check their online account and let parents know, which I'm sure all of you parents, your students let you know everything that's been going on in their lives, right? I've got an 8th grade son. I realize that's not the case, but be on top of them about that, because if the colleges do need anything, we want you to get that in as soon as they can. A lot of times colleges might not be able to do financial aid packages if you haven't done your verification yet. And if you don't respond, as it says, in a timely manner, occasionally people have went long enough where it could reduce some of their financial aid that they're able to get. At any times, if you have questions on the verification, contact the college financial aid office to make sure you're sending in the right thing. I'm hoping the majority of you will be able to use the data retrieval right away and not have to worry about this. I think it's one of the big benefits of them moving the FAFSA up early and using prior tax year, but it's still going to happen for some families. Now, when the colleges get the results back, they're going to take a look at that EFC number that I sort of mentioned earlier, the expected family contribution, the amount of money that they feel you as a family could contribute. What the colleges are going to utilize this number for is they're going to take their cost of attendance, which includes not only the tuition, fees, and room and board, but also indirect costs, estimated, books, transportation, personal expenses. And for those costs, a lot of colleges will estimate $3,000 to $5,000 it could accrue for the student throughout the year. Not anything that's billable to the college right away, but things that could accrue throughout the year. I'm going to come back and talk about that in just a second, but first I want to show you what the colleges do with their cost of attendance is they minus your EFC number, and that equals the student's financial need. No matter which colleges you're looking at, your EFC remains the same. But what is going to vary, because every college costs a different amount of money, is your financial need. And so what we always like to tell students and families when we're talking with them and showing them this slide is, don't automatically assume that one college is going to be $20,000 more than another as far as out-of-pocket expense. Because your need is higher, that might mean, I want to stress might, doesn't always mean this, but it might mean more financial aid for you. I'm going to give you an example here. Once the colleges determine this and all your paperwork is in, they're going to eventually send you out an award letter. An award letter lists everything that a student qualifies for. It's their financial aid package. When I say everything, I'm talking about a lot of times the state, the institutional aid, and the federal aid. It's not going to know private scholarships yet, so I guess when we consider that, which is a type of financial aid, they're not going to know that. That's something that you'll need to notify them about. These award letters in the past used to come out if you had everything in by the middle, end of March, beginning of April. That's when, if you were on top of things. Now that this process is spread out, starting earlier, different colleges are going to have different times when they're going to start sending out award letters. We've heard from some schools they could start going out in November. If everybody's got them in, could be December, January, February. So if you want to know when the award letter is going to come out for the colleges you're looking at, I would just contact them and let them know. Because there's even been a few schools, even as of this day, that weren't 100% sure when they would actually start sending out those award letters. This change is a big change for the colleges, as well as it will be for you as families if you've done this before. And so I think some of them are just kind of a wait and see, and they're going to do them a little bit sooner, but maybe not too soon. Because one of the issues that they have is getting federal and state aid finalized. Most times that doesn't happen until in the spring, but I think some colleges are going to be able to go out with very good estimates if they send them out, and that's what they will be, as estimates in November, December, and January. But whenever you get the award letters, and I want to let you know that this is something that we can do in our offices if you'd like to sit down and go over an award letter together. But what we like to do is we just take the direct costs, the tuition fees and room and board at each award letter we look at, and then subtract the scholarship and grant money. Scholarship and grant money is the free money, money you don't have to pay back. That is the good kind of financial aid. Well, if you see here on this example here, college A and B, $20,000 difference in the direct costs, but after the scholarship and grant money that each college was subtracted off their direct costs, now we have a difference of $450. Now again, I cannot promise that this always happens. By no means am I saying that. But if this student just automatically assumed in the beginning it was going to be $20,000 more and didn't go through the financial aid process, how would they know that it's only going to be a $450 remaining cost difference? And if they really wanted to go to college A over B and it was a better fit for them, well, it would have been sad that they didn't even take a look at it just based on the sticker price. Now, there are times where you might get the award letters back, and it is still that remaining cost will be a $20,000, a huge difference. At that time, you're probably going to have to rule out that school. Majority of families will. But at least you would know. At least you would have went through the financial aid process and not wonder what if I could have afforded to go to somewhere. So I'd say, even if it's a discrepancy in cost, go through with it, see what the colleges can provide. Now, we have here the remaining cost. Next thing I want to show you is with the remaining cost, we'll ask families what they can give in their personal savings, 529 plans, whatever they can give out of pocket, students and parents. And now what we figured out is the amount that they might need to borrow for the next year. There are still three things that we have not factored in. And those three things are the books, transportation, and personal expenses. We would actually like to see you as families not borrow money for those if at all possible. Pay them out of pocket as you go along. Books are going to be due each semester, but they vary from student to student depending on what classes that they take. But try to pay for those out of pocket each semester. The personal expenses month by month, whether the student's working, you as a parent is helping them out, a little bit combination of both, but try to pay for those personal expenses that accrue, that go along. And then for transportation to and from school, especially if you're looking at colleges here in Iowa, paying for that out of pocket too. If you do that, that could save you again from borrowing an extra $3,000 to $5,000 on top of what you see that you're going to need to borrow in this example for tuition fees and room and board. And where a lot of students get into trouble over borrowing is instead of $7,600, they borrow $12,600. I'm just going to borrow everything that I can, including for the indirect cost, and worry about paying it back later. Well, that's a big chunk of money for 1 year. You take it times 4 years if you're going to college for 4 years, and now instead of being over, $30,000 in debt, you're over $50,000 in debt, and you've got to pay that money back. Obviously, in this election year, and I say year even though it seems like it's been longer than a year and it really has started earlier than that, student loan debt has been a huge issue. We want to get a hold of students ahead of time before they go out of college to give them some tips. And one website that is out there that Iowa Student Loan puts out who is actually they're a sponsor of our financial aid program, the one you're seeing here right now. Been a great partner and sponsor of our financial aid program. They've got a website at Iowa's planning tool called the Game Plan to help estimate a career's repayment capability. We want to have students to have an idea, why are you going to college? What career are you looking at getting? And trying to find out what your expected starting salary is going to be. And I want to stress starting salary, not average what it is. Most students out of college are going to be at a starting salary. And make sure that you're able, whatever you're borrowing in college, you're able to pay it back. This is a simple statement, but not every job pays the same amount of money. Well, then not every student who goes on to college and gets a job is going to be able to afford the same amount of student loan debt. This Game Plan tool will help you being able to estimate that repayment capability, because we would like to see students not borrow any more in college than what their starting salary is going to be. This slide says 8 to 12%, but I think the simplest thing to do, if your starting salary is $25,000, don't borrow more than $25,000 while in college. If it's $35,000, don't borrow any more than that. If you can borrow less, that's great, but don't go over that, or you're going to have trouble being able to afford everything else that you want, the car, the home. Eventually, when you have kids, they are not expensive, as you parents listening to this know. It's going to be hard to do that if you have a starting salary of $25,000 and you borrowed $80,000. That's $800 a month for 10 years that you're going to be paying that loan back. And yes, there are some repayment options out there that can lower your payments, but spread out over time. That means more interest that you're paying, and more debt in the long run too. I still like to deal a lot with trying to pay with the standard repayment plan over 10 years. So get a realistic idea of what that starting salary is going to be, and then don't borrow any more than what that starting salary is going to end up being. That's one target goal to shoot for, and shooting for now before you actually go to college. That can be very helpful. Now, sources of where the money can come from. Just kind of finishing up here, I just wanted to briefly let you know about some sources of financial aid. First of all, these are the four main sources: the federal, the state, the colleges themselves, and private resources. If you eventually download our booklet on pages 12 through 13, we've got some of this information about federal student aid there. I wanted to mention about the Pell Grant, because a lot of families have heard of that. What's the application to see if we're Pell Grant eligible? The FAFSA form is that application. And if your EFC number is low enough, then you would be able to qualify for some amount of Pell Grant money. We don't know what the exact cutoff is yet on what it's going to be, but there is an estimation of Pell Grant money. If you qualify for it, when you submit the FAFSA form online, a confirmation page comes up that you'll get sent to an email, and you can also print off. Good idea to go ahead and print that off. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. But on there, if you qualify for Pell Grant, it'll give you an estimate on there. And it's usually a pretty good estimate. May go up or down just a little bit, but I think it'll be a pretty good estimate at this time of year that you'll see. The other federal aid that I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the program was the federal student loans, or Stafford Loans. What students are going to be able to borrow as freshmen is $5,500, and then $6,500 as sophomores, $75 as a junior, senior. Some of the loan could be subsidized, which means the interest is paid for while in school. It depends on if they have any financial need after any other aid given. The other part of it could be unsubsidized, or in some cases for students, maybe all of it is, but whether it's subsidized or unsubsidized, you do not have to begin repayment until 6 months after you graduate or drop below half-time. So graduate or drop below half-time, 6 months after then is when repayment is going to begin. Now, as far as state aid, down below there, a website, the Iowa College Student Aid Commission, iowacollegeaid.gov, and their phone number there. They're the state agency that administers state of Iowa aid. The top one on there, the Iowa Tuition Grant, is for Iowa students that are attending a private school in the state of Iowa. If you have an EFC below $13,500, you would have gotten this year's current students a $5,340 Iowa Tuition Grant award. So that's just one example if you're looking at a private school here in the state of Iowa. The Iowa Voc Tech or Kibbe grants are for students that are looking at community colleges in specific tech areas. This could be a possibility for you to be able to qualify for. But how does that all get started to see if you qualify? Filling out the FAFSA form. Again, most of it comes back to that form. Now, there is a separate Iowa financial aid application. Once you submit the FAFSA, there will be this icon on here for any Iowa residences. And if you're a priority, especially for priority awards, to qualify for some of them, TRIO participants, homeless youth, alternative program high school grads, as well as member of the National Guard, foster care, subsidized guardianship, or actively participate in the state fair. You can also go to iowacollegeaid.gov, and that's where the financial aid application is. You do not have to fill out the financial aid application for the Iowa Tuition Grant, KIBI Grant, or VOC Grant, but some of the other ones you would. And priority is definitely looked at for these areas listed on this form. So for many families, that would be another quick application to fill out. Now the college aid itself, some of it results directly from the FAFSA form, but other ones could have special scholarship days that they invite students to go to. And if you are invited to there, try to fit that in your schedule. Now that the financial aid process has started sooner, some colleges are going to have scholarship days here in the fall, and others, as well as some spring ones too, instead of all of them just being offered in the spring. So know when the dates are, find it out if you're invited, and I think it's definitely well worth the students' attendance at those scholarship days to try to get as many scholarships as possible from the college itself. Ever have questions on them, contact the admissions or financial aid offices for additional requirements. And then private scholarships. Private scholarships here in our booklet, specifically on page number 12, if you eventually get a copy of that or download it, we've got these scholarship websites listed. But these are other places to check. You know, school counselor, a lot of local ones in the school will come due in the spring, so be checking with the school counselor. Parents work. Many parents don't realize that they're offering scholarships until they have a student that's a high school senior, and when they check, there could be one for you to do there. So a lot of different places to go for. I wanted to give you an example of one scholarship that's happening right now that we're giving away. A colleague of ours who's actually taped this program before and has been on the airwaves up here in the Ames area, Steve Lovan, he's actually still helping us do some FAFSAs even though he's retired during our busy time. But we have a scholarship honoring him. And the website down below is where you can go and you can apply right now for this scholarship. We're taking them through March 1st of 2017. So two $250 scholarships help pay for books, and the more you apply, the more money, that better chance that you're going to end up receiving scholarships. Iowa Student Loan is also offering some scholarship and awards for families to go through their game plan and then what they call their Rocky reality check, return on college investment, Rocky reality check. Just making sure that families are not over borrowing and tips on trying to keep the debt load down. So you go through those tools and then you can sign up for scholarship drawings, and they're given over $130,000 in scholarship and awards to seniors, parents of high school seniors, and Iowa high schools themselves. So again, just a couple of places there. Doing a Google search is another way if you ever have an interest. Whatever that interest might be, there might be other people that have money with that similar interest out there. You know, a big one that I used to mention a lot and still do is the duct tape one for the prom dresses and the tuxedos. That's been around for quite a few years, and if you ever Google search what some of the students do with these prom dresses, using just duct tape for the prom dresses and tuxedos, it's amazing. But they're scholarships that they gave. Well, I've used that as my example, and just a few weeks ago I was in a high school and a mom raised her hand and said, yes, my daughter actually got one of those back in 2008 for $15,000. Well, I wasn't even thinking it was going to be that much, but that was amazing. She was actually going to be a design student at a college, and she was awarded that. So you never know, whatever passion you might have, somebody else might have it with some money to give, and one way of finding that out, doing Google searches. Besides the websites that I had listed. The last thing I will mention on scholarships is it is going to take some work, and you're going to have to look for them and fill out apps, so it can take some work. But if it takes you 2 hours to get a $500 scholarship, that's $250 per hour. Sign me up for a job that pays $250 per hour. I mean, it can be well worth the time, and the more that you do, the better chance, more money that you can end up making. And when you're doing scholarship apps, also remember, always do them exactly as the instructions say. That is the first part, making the first cut. If you do it exactly as the instructions say, that'll usually get students on to the next round of that scholarship application process. Now, I've thrown out a lot of information to you today, and you might be saying, I'm overwhelmed. Where can I get help? Well, again, here are the places you can go for free along the way. Your school counselors at the area high schools, the college admission or financial aid offices. Sometimes your questions might only be about that the colleges can be the only ones that can answer those. So contact them. That is our number there at the Iowa College Access Network. And again, our website, icansucceed.org. If you click on that, want to schedule an appointment, go to our website. There's a Schedule Now button on the front page in the lower right-hand corner. We'll be more than happy to help you out with this information. And on our website, we have that ready to file the FAFSA sheet I had showed earlier that has everything you would need to bring in. And then there's the Iowa College Student Aid Commission, again, the state agency that administers state of Iowa aid. So many places for free resources you can go for help along the way if you do. And really, another reason why I really like this change in the FAFSA starting earlier, but another reason is when you get it in and get it done, it's going to allow for more time to ask questions if you've never been through it before throughout this school year. Now, we do provide at ICAN also, you can sign up online for a video of the week and an e-newsletter each month. There is a place to sign up to get the e-news at our website. We've also got a presence on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest. Now, I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert in all the areas. I really like Twitter and YouTube. We've got some presentations on the YouTube channel there, breaking it down a little bit more, not just financial aid, but some career and college planning information, scholarship process, giving you some helpful tips on that too. I know my wife is big into Pinterest. I don't understand it, but my wife is into that, and others may as well. So we really have all of your social media taken care of there, getting information out on scholarships, things that are going on, deadlines. So if that's the way you get it, please follow us and like us, see us. Just check us out on these sites. And the last thing I want to leave you with is here's some next steps. But the main thing that I want you to have got from this presentation is make sure that you fill out the FAFSA form by the earliest FAFSA priority date of whatever colleges that a student is looking at. That is going to be the best way to ensure you get the most financial aid coming to you. And a lot of other questions that go along in the process can be answered after that. But as long as you do that and get it in by the earliest FAFSA date of any colleges the student is looking at, then you're going to be in good shape and have, again, a lot of free resources where to go. So I really thank you very much for taking a look at our presentation here. If you have questions, again, you see our number there, our toll-free number, and then our website as well. Don't hesitate to contact us along the way if you would like an appointment. So good luck. Have fun with this process. Talk together as a family and enjoy it. But just know you've got a lot of resources to go to if you need any help. Thank you very much.